What's going on, everyone? Happy Monday to everyone. Hopefully everyone is doing well and having a great start to the week so far. It is time now for the Monday edition of the Climate Update for Monday, January 29th, 2024. We do have several things to talk about today, including a clipper system that is going to come down from the north and two storm systems that are going to impact the West Coast and the United States. One which will travel across the country and become a potential bigger storm off the southeast coast of the United States. First off, if you're new to my channel, this is where we do the daily climate update. We talk about climate stories around the world and of course do the weather forecast for the United States. So if you like this type of content, give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Today our main focus is the United States because there is the potential for a significant storm to impact the United States, and the first one, we do know it's definitely going to have significant impacts on the United States. Taking a look at the national satellite picture, you can see some places are seeing something they have not seen in a long time. Sunshine. Sunshine has returned to the central regions and portions of the southeast. The sun has come out. The northeast, there's still some scattered clouds. Some sun is peeking through, but there are still some scattered clouds. If you take a look up in the north central region, the Midwest, you can see some clouds starting to come in. That is ahead of a clipper system that is going to come down. All right, taking a look at the Pacific Northwest satellite picture, you can see there is already some clouds and activity moving into Alaska, Western Canada, and portions of the Pacific Northwest, like Washington. Take a look out here in the Pacific. You can see a storm system is developing, and that is going to impact the West Coast, and that is the same system that is going to also impact the southern U.S. as well and become a sizable system. Taking a look at the national radar picture, you can see things are drying out in the northeast. Here's the clipper system that is now entering over Lake Superior. It's not going to be that big of a deal, but it's something we can look at and something we can track. And you can also see just northwest of Seattle, Washington, there is some precipitation that is already ongoing. All right, taking a look at the national hazards map, and you'll see it's quiet across most of the country. We do have some high wind watches that are now up for portions of California and southern Oregon. 30 to 40 mile per hour sustained winds are likely Tuesday into Wednesday. Gust 65 to 75 miles per hour. Yes, this is something that we are concerned about. Add in the fact that there's also going to be very heavy rainfall with this as well. Speaking of rainfall, let's take a look at the excessive rainfall forecast. Quiet for the next 2 days, but then when we come to day 3, we see there is a large marginal risk for Oregon and portions of California, and within that there is a slight risk of heavy excessive rainfall as well, where we do think there is going to be very heavy rainfall. How much rainfall are we talking? Well, let's take a look at the precipitation forecast from the Weather Prediction Center, and you can see here on days 1 through 7 they are going with a widespread 3 to 5 inches of rainfall for a large portion of Northern California, with isolated 7+ inch amounts, and there's some models that have over 8 inches. Take a look at Southern California. Yes, precipitation is starting to increase for you in the forecast as well. 2 to 4 inches of rainfall is likely, again locally 5+ inches, and then eventually that system is going to transfer its energy to the southern U.S. Look at this. You're seeing widespread areas of 1 to 2 inch rainfall amounts expected in the southeast. And look at this, off the South Carolina coast. Rainfall amounts starting to go up because this could form into a coastal system. All right, speaking of rainfall, we had some records broken yesterday in Pittsburgh. Just over an inch of rainfall yesterday. Morgantown, just over an inch of rainfall. Wheeling, West Virginia, 1.21 inches. And Zanesville, Ohio, had just over 3/4 of an inch of rainfall. All of these break previous records, with the Pittsburgh record going back to 1943. And Wheeling, wow, you really broke this. 1.21 inches of rainfall, which breaks the previous record of 0.83 inches of rainfall all the way back in 1923. All right, taking a look at the Storm Prediction Center. Quiet over the next several days. If there's going to be any severe weather, could potentially be maybe a marginal risk with the storm system on the west coast later on in the week. All right, let's take a look at the NAM model. First off, taking a look at the NAM for the Clipper system, here it comes down tonight. You can see there is a band of snow and mixed precipitation that goes across Ohio. You should be concerned about that if you're traveling, because that could cause some slick spots, which could potentially lead to some accidents on the roadways. Be careful if you're going near or in and around that area where the system's going to be passing through. It's going to go over the Appalachian Mountains and then transfer its energy to a coastal system off the Carolina coast. But it's going to do nothing more than provide a few showers to the Carolinas and eventually transfer its energy eastward and exit the region. You also notice here there's some sort of snow shower activity showing up, or flurries over Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. Believe it or not, there's some indications there could be some ocean effect snow showers. We'll have to see if that actually materializes on Tuesday night into Wednesday. This storm system exit, but you look at the West Coast and look what happens here. Here's our bigger storm system that comes into play for California. Let's take a look at that on the GFS model. Here it is currently, way out here in the Pacific. You can see it comes west, and it does get relatively strong, 964 millibars. The actual low will go just north of Washington up into Canada, but all this moisture is going to come onshore, and the onshore flow is going to pick up as well. With that onshore flow, we are talking about high winds and very heavy rainfall, like San Francisco Bay Area, and eventually even down into Southern California, Los Angeles, San Diego. It is going to impact you. Then what we have to watch is, we switch this to the 500 millibar level so you can take a look at the upper levels of the atmosphere. That energy is going to transfer itself to Texas and eventually to the Gulf of Mexico. And you can see this energy, it really gets wound up. It gets quite strong. Somewhere within this, it is going to develop another low, and I will show you that. Here's the other low on the GFS. The GFS transfers the low to over Georgia. If we switch models to the Canadian model, which we will do right now, you can see that also transfers it to over Florida. Here's the continental U.S. view, and you can see here, this low really gets wound up. There's a lot of energy with this, so there would be potential for high winds, heavy flooding rainfall. Coastal erosion would also be possible in the Carolinas. And right now, we're talking about early next week. It's going to take a long time for this to come across the country. Let me rewind this again. You can see the impacts, we're talking Tuesday night into Thursday on the West Coast, with the biggest, wettest day being Wednesday evening, where there's going to be high winds, heavy rainfall. And then over the weekend is when it starts getting its act together over the central region, Texas. But it's not going to be a fast process. It's going to be slow. This is not going to just develop into a low over the southeast until early next week. A piece of the energy is going to get strung out and head eastward, and then this parent low will continue eastward, transfer its energy to the Gulf, and that's when we have to watch. Now, there's some complications here. Is this going to slow down? Is it going to exit to the east? Or is it going to try and come up? It's not very likely that it tries and comes up the coast, because we do have a block to the north that is suppressing the storm system. But what is possible is this could get hung up in the southeast. And if it gets hung up for a long enough time, it really could cause some impact. And you can see here on the Canadian model, look what happens here. The low really gets hung up off the southeast coast of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, which means a prolonged onshore flow of winds, heavy rain, and potential coastal flooding is all on the table with this storm. Let's take a look at the GEFS, which is the ensemble of the GFS. And we're taking a look here at the low tracks. And you can see here, it's a pretty big signal on the GEFS. You can see here, it is definitely showing that there will be a storm off the southeast coast. The question is, how fast is this storm going to move, and is it going to come up the coast? You don't see very many members coming up the coast, so I give it a very low chance that this would actually make it up the east coast. But what I do give a moderate to significant chance at this time is that there will be a sizable storm system off the southeast coast. Now, we're taking a look at 18Z Monday at this point. Look at the west coast. I have to talk about this too. There's going to be a second storm system that impacts the west coast at the same time that there's a storm system going on the east coast. Let's take a look at the European. We can see that a little bit more clear. And let's advance this. Here comes the first system. You can see it comes in on the west coast, and then the energy comes down to the Gulf of Mexico. The European exits this off the southeast coast faster, and it does not get as strong. You can see here, it's a little more strung out, it's less organized. Not certain I'm agreeing with that, but what you do see here is, look at the west coast at the same time, that's starting to get its act together. Another storm system is impacting California with very heavy rainfall. I mean, the European here is showing for the next system on Monday and Tuesday of next week, another 3 to 5 plus inches of rainfall and several feet of snow in the mountains. Both storm systems, the first one this week and the one next week, are going to cause heavy snowfall in the mountains of California. All right, guys, we will continue to track both of these systems. For the rest of the country, like the Northeast, it's going to be fairly quiet and average temperatures for you. And in the South, just keep your eyes open because this storm system means impact. If it does turn out to be that this system is going to be slower moving, more organized, we could see a significant rainfall amount and significant potential for flooding in the Southeast with even some wind damage. I mean, you could be talking with an organized storm, you could be talking winds that gust up to 60 miles per hour if it's stronger like the Canadian and the GFS are suggesting. So it's something you really need to watch. And of course, we'll be tracking it here on the channel, and we will have another update on this storm again tomorrow. If you enjoyed this content, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys again next time.